Yeah. So we had to do. So see, my teaching partners here.
Well, if we're getting people to do wild pants day, remember when we had the mismatch day and we couldn't get anybody to do that?
I can't do that.
Maybe we're making progress, stepping out of our comfort zone.
What is some missing
It's
out?
all because of LuLaRoo.
LuLaRoo, I didn't own any of that.
All those wild leggings.
Oh,
You're going to our next Friday?
Yeah.
You want me to yell really loud?
No,
I don't get what this is. I don't get this. LuLaRoo.
I have one of those materials. Did someone already pick up some materials from people who aren't here? They're like really soft. So Christian needs,
so like,
gotten Rena's.
This is not a store
And then we
apparently.
also
No,
need
it's like a
Christy,
pop-up
Rena.
boutique is what it's called. Okay.
And then who else goes to like
To places.
Oh.
Yeah.
Jill gave me 15. Was that my magic number? I thought I had 4 because I made 20 had extra, so I thought I'm being
we've had it.
more economical.
All right, it's 3:45 and we're all ready. You got your pop, got your licorice. We need some more. Feel free to get up and
4:30.
get it, and we'll have Diane go ahead and get started. Happy New Year! Glad to see all you guys.
Makes it kind of crazy trying to get everything back together after the Christmas break and then snow, and I get it. Today I want to talk to you about opportunities to reimagine your math classroom. And that's based on a lot of things you filled in on that Google Doc for me. So first off, thank you for taking the time to fill out that shared Google Doc about what materials you use, what digital apps you're using, what tools you're using. I know that was extra, but it really helped me to get a big picture of what's going on in system-wide here. So here's my big takeaways from that. We have a very wide variety of teaching materials that are being used in this building. And so when I looked at that, I found some really good materials that were being used, but I would classify them as more of intervention materials than teaching materials. I found some older algorithmic-driven textbooks. Not that that's necessarily bad if we've got teaching ahead of that conceptually. That information was not apparent to me, so I don't know, it could be okay. I also saw things that were like collections of stuff, and so maybe it came from Teachers Pay Teachers, which has some good, some bad, some ugly. Maybe it came from Pinterest, same deal, some good, some bad, some ugly. Or maybe it was something you picked up from a conference, a workshop, a favorite presenter, all those kind of things. And when I looked at your digital resources, the vast majority of those were of pretty good quality, but I have a lot of concerns about the time constraints. Do this before 1 minute goes up or you lose your balloon. You know, make whatever happens in this time frame or you don't get that extra life. I'm curious if any of the apps we're using have that, you got it wrong, try again, with any kind of a feedback. Okay, so I'm curious if we have any apps that are doing that for us. And I'm really concerned about some of the apps being drill and practice only with no conceptual piece to it, no picture for the students to hang their learning onto. Now, drill and practice is not necessarily bad if I've got the concept down and I just want to get a little bit faster in my thinking. So don't go away from here where I'm saying drill and practice is a bad thing, because that's not the message I want to send. So I have some questions for you to ponder, a couple slides of them. And these are just things when I was reading through it that I wondered about. So I wondered how all of you knew if you're using the same consistent language for Iowa Core vocabulary throughout all the grades that we're learning, or are we using different terms? If I don't have a same uniform curriculum, I wondered. The second one, I wondered how teachers knew if they've taught all the standards required for the grade, and if you do, how did you prioritize your time for each of those standards? I believe I shared with you that one document where it has major, additional, and supporting. They were color-coded as green and yellow and blue, where we need to take a lot more time on the major standards. They're going to be more important, and so I wondered how you did that, if the materials I were using was a unique collection. I also wondered how the teachers knew what strategies were being taught in prior grade levels. Did it come conceptually, and what version of conceptually did it come with? 1, 2, 6? So how did I know how to build on that? And finally, I wondered how you planned your sequence of lessons. Back in the dark days, they used to call them scope and sequence, do this before you do this, before you do this. Well, I wondered how you did that if I was using this collection of stuff. So I have all these questions, but I have more. When it was coming to the digital stuff, the apps and the tools with the time constraints, I wondered if you balanced those with apps that didn't have time constraints. Time's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's been an awful lot of studies done recently that are showing the stress that comes on just because something's ticking down. And we want to balance that, monitor it, consider it with tasks that they don't require. They don't have to perform something in a time frame before the opportunity goes away. So I'm wondering if you're considering a balance of apps with and without the time factors in them. Do you even know what apps have time factors in them? Is that something you've even put your radar on? And then additionally, are you practicing the drill and practice sites with conceptual learning? And conceptual learning is going to have the supports for them for the pictures, those kind of things, to get their task completed. So from all my wonderings, anybody want to share out anything, any answers, concerns, questions?
Maybe we just go back to that previous slide, just take the first one and just have a maybe
Discussion on?
discussion.
Okay. So, how do you know if you're all using the same consistent Iowa Core math vocabulary? Do you know that there is a math vocabulary? Might be question number one.
I think that's where our issue's been for a while, is that we all feel like we're all doing our own thing and we all think we're doing what we're supposed to, but I don't know, I send my kids off to first grade and say, yay, go for it. I'm
Here you
sure
go.
Yep, I'm sure I taught you everything. I mean, I think that's what we're missing, is that we all are picking and choosing, and we've had that discussion for a long time.
And different, like, you know, like K1 has been to some trainings together where maybe we might be on the same page, but then second grade wasn't there, or maybe the upper unit has gone to this person, we've gone to someone different, and so we've got different approaches.
So do we agree that that might be an issue we can investigate
Yes.
and solve?
It seems like a couple years ago, didn't we have like a math vocabulary list?
It's
We had
science back
Science,
then.
okay, all right.
Well, I can certainly provide you with appropriate resources for vocabulary. Okay. Any more on number one, or the first bullet there? I guess it'd be nice if I numbered them. All right. How do you know if you've taught all the standards required for what your grade level is?
I think plan book has that.
It does.
Mhm.
But you still don't, I mean, last year I didn't get to everything. ST Math is going to help that.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, we started at volume, you know? So,
Whoa,
yeah. We didn't realize that, we figured it out later, but, you know, they've already done volume and we.
And it hasn't come in through
Right.
your curriculum cycle yet,
Right.
but now you're gonna be able to zoom a little faster because they've got experiences to hang
Right.
their hat on.
Right.
Okay? So you've got some sort of a plan book that is it like a checklist, like you've
Yeah.
been there, done
Yes.
that?
It's all,
It
yes.
shows.
How many times you've done that?
It
Stan?
Okay.
keeps track of it for you, so you
Okay.
can see the date that you covered that standard and what the standard was.
And do you have a,
So it's the online planbook.com, so.
okay, I use Planbook EDU, so I get that online stuff,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the one I happen to use, and I put it in there. Do you have a way to record whether it's introductory, developing, mastering? Do you have a way to tie any kind of a formative assessment to it, a summative assessment to it?
Only if it's in your plans, you'd have to go back and look at your plans, but
Okay.
it doesn't attach it to the standard.
Okay, that might be something you may want to think of, especially in light of our new Smarter Balanced perhaps. I have to keep that clarification on there, because if I say I taught it and it comes out for Smarter Balanced testing and my students come back and they're not doing well in it, can I go back and say,
oh, well, I really thought I had it like hit 7 times, and we kept going back to that. So what was my question that I was asking the students to solve compared to what DOK level it might be? All right. So do you prioritize your time according to the major additional supporting? Have you paid any attention to that yet? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of
I
this.
started to do that. We went back and looked through that sheet that you
Right.
gave us and said, "Whoa, we're
Yeah.
spending too much time, you know, because this is taking a lot of time, these concepts, and so."
We need to
Not
make
leaving
sure
it.
we cover everything, but I need to deeply cover those major standards. Do you have a time where you can communicate with one another about what has been taught and how it's been taught? Do you have a, like, passing the baton kind of thing at the end of the school year?
Curriculum meetings at the end of the year.
So those deep conversations, are they just about, you know, I got through everything except we didn't cover long division or whatever the concept might be?
I don't know how deep it gets.
Yeah,
I feel like it's been a while since we've done that, cause I can remember back when Shonda Bear, like, we caught something from first to second back when Shonda was still here. We had one, but that's kind of the last conversation like that I remember having.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say we need to reinstitute conversations among us. We are a group of, we support each other. And I realize that when we get deeply into the core, if my students are having difficulties with it, I may not get through everything. I'm horrors, but that's reality. And so we need to let the next grade level know, hey, you know, when I got to the geometry unit, we spent only 2 days on these 9 lessons. Well, that's pretty much just tiptoeing around. The students won't have much familiarity with that yet.
I feel like a big problem that we might face is the fact that, kind of what we talked about earlier, how we're all doing our own thing. Because I feel like, you know, there may be some really good strategies, things happening in 3rd grade. But then, if the 4th, I don't know, I just don't feel like we're all, you know, like Lori said, we went to a class, we found this awesome stuff, so we like dove into that. But then they go to 2nd grade and, well, they haven't been exposed to that, so then they're not continuing with that.
The
or growing in that.
continuity, the progression of
Yeah.
learning stops.
Yeah, and like, I mean, it's probably been 5-6 years ago that kindergarten level, when Common Core started to kind of come around, that we decided that our curriculum was not,
Cut.
no, it was, no. And so we threw that out the window, and so now, you know, we don't have a consistent K-6 curriculum that everyone's doing, everyone's looking at progressing and learn, I mean, so I feel like with Common Core, it has benefits, obviously, as we all know, and it has downfalls, but I feel like that's one of the downfalls, because like, one person can read a standard and say, okay, well, I can do this and this and this to teach that. And another person can read it and interpret it a totally different way, and that's changes, you know, so I feel like, in terms of continuity and what great things that are happening in one grade level could continue to help kids, but I don't necessarily think we just haven't put it all together.
That's what we need to do. We need to put it all together. We need to collaborate with one another. We need to share the strategies and learn from each other. So if someone's doing something awesome from a workshop that we just learned and it has good research base behind it and students are responding, let's pass the message on. You know, that should be something we're doing. Okay. Tell me about how you're deciding what you're teaching. If I'm a collection type of teacher, how do I decide what I'm teaching first?
Well, Christy and I kind of do that. We sit down and go through, well, you know, you gotta have this before you can really get into that type of thing.
Okay.
And we've switched now, we kind of wrote it all out, the sequence. And now, like this year, I went back in and I said,
This didn't work well.
we didn't have that yet, so we need to do some shifting around, so.
So you're reflecting on a pattern you've had in the past and then making improvements on it. Okay, and so you're collaborating with the same grade level?
Yes.
Okay, anybody else doing the same kind of,
We do the same thing in 1st grade.
okay?
I mean, we've been together for several years now, so a couple years back, we looked at our curriculum and our
Tried to map it out
progression.
for a logical progression of learning.
I've been pleasantly surprised that it's following the sequence of the skills taught on ST Math
Ooh.
fairly well. They're either hitting it just before or after I am, so
Hey, that's a little,
Yeah, I know, a little bit.
yay, pat yourself
For
on the
today,
back.
anyway.
Okay. What I'm hearing from all of this is, we need to get it together for a plan, whatever that plan is. That we may have awesome stuff, but no one else maybe knows about it except my same grade level teammate.
We've been telling people, we've been using Engage New York since you showed it to us. And I had found it this summer and then I kind of forgot about it, so I'm glad we talked about it. And then we talked about it and we're like, you know, it includes everything. It includes fluency, it includes problem solving,
Distributed
it
meaningful
includes.
practice, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it really incorporates, as you were talking about the vocabulary of the Common Core, because I'm using terminology that I wouldn't normally have used. I mean, just all the different forms and ways that you can write a number.
Yes.
I mean, we all know what expanded notation and standard notation, but uniform, I've never referred to it that way. I think it's very good with incorporating everything from the Common Core. We've enjoyed it. It's
Is
challenging
that
for us.
second
Second.
grade?
Yeah. It's a lot of higher order thinking, and
It makes us think a lot more when we present it, we're like, whoa,
Yeah.
we've never done it that way.
there's a
before.
lot of manipulatives, a lot of hands-on. It's very nice.
But I think the big thing is like, it's just so hard, and I think in previous conversations we've had, it's hard because something that works for a lower level
Right.
isn't necessarily what's gonna work for upper level, or vice versa. And so how, all these questions, like as you read them the first time, I'm like, yep.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
It's like, that's
You
what,
hit the nail
Okay,
on the head
but I
on
just
most of
don't,
it.
I don't know, yeah.
Well, let me move on.
Even just elementary though, you gotta think about moving on up too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially
You
that
folks are
terminology.
building my foundation, but they've gotta build on it when I get to junior and senior high. Absolutely. So, this is a possibility for us, is to look at textbooks. Now, I listed several, and I have a very tiny disclosure here. These are some of the series. There's other ones out there, but if I was going to look at schools served in Heartland, these are the main players. These are the ones that are current, new copyrights, Common Core compliant, conceptual learning, all those kind of things. So, I'm not here to say one is better than another. That's your job. But I supplied the list to Ms. Flannery just like last week. And so these are all things that samples could be ordered. And as a group, you could look at them, decide if this is a way of learning that here in Guthrie Center we want to work with, or this is so far out there, no, I'm not doing that to any student that walks through my door. Okay? And so, a pro, you'd all have knowledge of what was taught in previous grades, the strategies used, and the vocabulary would be consistent. The con would be that cute little collection of activities needs to go into a file. We can, if we're going to teach from a textbook, the first year we need to teach from it with fidelity to find out if the series is working well for us before we add anything to it. We need to teach what the textbooks offer, which means when we look at the textbook, we need to look at it through the core lens. Does it cover everything that Iowa Core requires of us? Does it cover what we want for our students here in Guthrie Center? So as I look at my collection, I would like to push all of you to be open to a textbook. And yes, they come in print, so many of them now are consumables through high school. Yes. So, it used to be that we had the reorders. The textbook companies now will give you a quote for 6 or 7 years, and that quote will include a automatic shipment of the things that were consumable for the next year without an additional cost. Okay? All of these textbooks now come with the digital components. Some are better than others. Okay?
What we have found when we were looking at textbooks, and we've looked at textbooks before, is that they do a really good job like K-3, but then they're not as good for 6, or vice versa. Is there they getting better about being more consistent?
Yes, they are getting much better, and the Core has demanded that. There's a publisher's criteria that really ramped up the books. When the Common Core was first put out for textbook companies, I believe the textbook company rearranged the lessons they had and slapped a sticker on it that said Common Core.
Yeah, that's what we found.
With the review. And then it was just like, yeah. But then the publisher's criteria came out, and the publishers have done a upgrade to their copyrights. So if you're looking at a 2013 copyright, I wished you wouldn't. You know, and if you're looking at anything earlier than that, I wished you wouldn't. I'm looking at a 2014, 2015, 2016, and believe it or not, this Investigations is already working on their 2017 edition. So you want to be mindful of those kind of things. What conversations do you have about any of that?
Well, my first thought is I will gladly contact all these companies, but do you really want to be inundated with manuals? Is there any way we could kind of narrow it down in a little bit of a discussion, or
Like what your top
or
Everyday Math.
All right, Everyday Math 4 is a brand new edition, and it's 90% different than any other Everyday Math.
Okay, never mind then.
Okay.
My last statement.
For the good, for the good or the bad?
A disclosure, I am also trained in Everyday Mathematics 4 because a couple other school districts I serve wanted me to go that, so I am trained as a consultant in that. So I have, I think, pretty deep knowledge of Everyday Mathematics 4 and a thimble full of Everyday Mathematics 3, and before that I don't have it.
Does
Okay.
it still have a lot of like manipulatives and stuff to get out for every lesson, would you say?
Yes, but not as bad. It has been streamlined down instead of taking 90 minutes. 60 is going to need to be happening, and 75 is for student thinking. Yes, they still have a variety of games to practice. It's a little bit less of the practice. There is still journals to fill out, the math boxes, if you're familiar with that. There's still 4 math boxes, sometimes 5, and they do progress, but they've paired them up.
Is it still spiral?
Yes, it still spirals, and it now has the ability to see where you're at any given time, so you know whether you have to hover on a lesson because students aren't getting it, or whether it's like, okay, this is exposure 2 out of 32. I don't really have to worry yet that Johnny and Susie are not picking this up. It's still in the introductory stages.
That's what I like the most about it when we did it, is it spirals around. So, and I've noticed that this year. This is my first year back teaching math in a couple of years. And before we did Everyday Math, and so coming back and doing it, we do 4 weeks of measurement, 4 weeks, and I miss the spiraling because
Okay,
I felt
the
like
spiraling
my
is
kids
going
would do
to
it.
happen in many of these kind of pieces. Through distributed meaningful practice, things come back and back and back. I don't know of any other series that is up here that does it quite as openly as the new Everyday Math series does. Now, I know a lot about Everyday Mathematics. That doesn't mean I'm saying this is where you should go. There are other wonderful topics out there. The Go Math, the first edition was very heavily worksheet driven. The second edition is a little less, but would still be lots of papers to go home for students. And my experience is I can send them home and they may not come back, or they may come back and they haven't been completed. So I would be cautious in looking at any series that would have a huge worksheet component to it. I'm not opposed to worksheets. They have a place. I need to know what students are thinking, but there needs to be more. Okay?
did I know, like, I've looked up stuff for Engage New York and it's also said Eureka Math. Are
Okay,
they somehow
Eureka Math is a print version, and Engage New York has looked at Eureka Math. They're extremely similar, but this one is completely online and as of today, still free. It's all Creative Commons, so we are free to download and use any of it. Will they change that? Possibly. So even though it's free and online now, if I'm using it, I want to grab everything and copy it and save it to my own hard drive because it may not be there tomorrow. I cannot guarantee that.
That would be a
Good
bummer.
to know.
Mhm.
In a month if it stopped.
Mhm. Yes, so Eureka is very much like Engage New York. Very, very much like Engage New York.
Have you heard anything about the Ready Common Core that we
I have not.
copies of?
I have not. Not good, not bad, not anything. So, maybe wonderful, I simply do
Is
not
that the
know.
one that we have the copies of? Okay, is that intended to be like a curriculum standalone by itself? Cause when I looked at it, I mean, it was talking about 30 to 45-minute lessons 3 times a week. And it just didn't seem like it was
I assumed it was a standalone.
more of a intervention.
Or
The way I think it was, if the curriculum you have wasn't written for Common Core, you could use this to help supplement, you know, I don't have things about solid shapes or whatever. But it didn't seem like it would be,
I can't answer that
Well,
I
question.
looked at the
7
higher
weeks or-
level though, and it had plans that
It said spend.
planned everything out that was
Standard,
daily.
spend 5
Yeah.
days here, 5 days here, on day 1 you do
Okay,
this, day
maybe
2
that's
this,
just
day
ours.
3.
It's just
Yeah,
ours.
ours didn't mind it.
ours didn't look like that. I mean, like the reading one was talking about like, this is a 30-minute thing 3 times a week. And,
Virtually the same thing, just different book each time.
yeah, it seemed like more of
Literature,
a
it's more
supplement
literature.
to.
Yeah, we got reading and writing along with the math for
Sure.
the Ready Common Core, so.
A lot of schools have these 3. I have one that has this, and I have one that has this. The investigations do not have anyone in Region 1, the western part of our Heartland, that's in investigations, but I would find it if I went into some of the larger communities.
Is there, I've not giggled it. Googled it, is there some kind of I don't know, a math rating?
I have
Oh my God.
a document from the curriculum, from the math consultants, but it is outdated. It's of 2014 for what schools are using what, and of course, I wouldn't put any stock in that at this point. So, I heartily recommend that every one of these will have a web presence. Take a look at their, they might have 6 or 7 lessons posted online. Look at it. If it looks interesting, make a note. Mrs. Flannery, I'd sure like to have a sample of this.
Do you have, are you gonna send us this?
Absolutely.
Okay, then I won't write it.
Yeah, don't write anything down. I'll send it to Diane and she can forward it out to you. You can have all this stuff.
Can I ask, I gotta make sure I'm following this, about this whole textbook adoption. Is this something that we're moving towards next year?
That's an administration question.
I'm thinking with our state of financial difficulties, this is a lot of money. So I wonder how much time we wanna invest before we do it, I guess.
Well, and here's another thought. We haven't had a new math series since I've been here, and this is my 14th year. Wow. Or 15th year. Thank you, 15th.
I'll tell you about teaching time.
Well, you know, and
But
we
no, we
looked at, what are we gonna do? And the last time we said they just stuck a Common Core math now sticker on it, is the last time we looked at it. But then there's another iron in the fire to think about. Are we gonna wanna have the same math series as what Adair Casey has? If we go that way,
Right now, we're separate, I wouldn't think that we would have to have the same thing
Okay.
they do.
okay.
And if we like.
And we've had it on the table before that we'd like to adopt a math textbook series, and
Yes.
I haven't revealed that to Steve
Or the board.
right now, but, we haven't purchased social studies either, but that's been an option for a few years too. We just haven't found anything we like to be able to take to them and say, this is what we need.
Right.
And I think that, one of the things that Steve would look at is it would have to have a technology component to it. And as, I don't think he's gonna want one that's heavy on paper
Right.
either, so, but like I said, if you want that many samples coming your direction, I will gladly order those, but,
I guess back to my question. My question is more focused in terms of, is this something that we're looking at doing in the near future, or are we just like starting a conversation? Cause I'm just new on this, so I'm
well, we
wondering.
could, it depends on what we find, we could turn around and have it for next year, yes. That's why I wanted to start looking at that Ready Common Core and have a discussion. I think I have that on a collaboration, maybe later on in the month, just to start that conversation, so I'm glad we're having it today.
So we're just starting, right? Like I haven't missed.
No, you haven't missed anything.
Okay.
If I was going to try to compare apples to apples, if I had 4 textbooks arrive on my desk, I take a look at my major standard. I pick a major standard out, whatever makes you happy. And I'd use that very same standard, and I'd go textbook to textbook to textbook to textbook. And I'd say differences, similarities, options, conceptual. How am I going to handle it with technology? Do they have to have, is it only digital? Don't do that. I mean, I would think we'd want a balance. I would like to have a textbook be available in the classroom, but I'd also like to have the kid have ability to see it at home. But I'd use that same standard, and I'd choose a major standard. How do they develop it?
And what the conversation you might have missed, though, Shalene, and it's coming out today, but we've had these conversations before where we don't feel that there's a consistency. We don't feel like there's a commonality with our math. We've been picking and choosing and using our math series as a foundation. Well, that also depends on the grade level too. So, so those are some of the background conversations you may have missed. And like I said, the textbooks have been an option before, but we haven't found anything that we really liked before.
And does it really matter what you use as long as you're covering your core?
No, it doesn't matter what you use as long as you're covering the core, and the textbook has conceptual development. But there are some that would have you explore first for a day, and then the next day apply your explorations into learning. There are others that simply give the visual pieces and manipulatives, and you have guided practice throughout it. There are others who tiptoe through the tulips, and after 6 weeks, we finally mastered it because it's incremental pieces of learning. So it depends on what the vision of mathematics is here at Guthrie Center. That's why we need the collective wisdom of all of you. If I was going to recommend, I'd say let's look at the top half and get a sample. And then if we don't like any of those, we'll go to the bottom half. Does that sound like a beginning approach? Yes?
Yeah.
And are those all textbooks?
Yes.
Except the last one is just the online.
And it's online textbook. It's just online. It's not in print form. You could download it and print it and, you know, kill your own trees.
Yeah.
Do that kind of thing. Sure. Well, it happens one place or another, whether the textbook did it or whether you did it. You know. Okay, can I move on? In all of my conversations here, there has not been one day where some piece of fluency question didn't come up. And I like that because that means you care very much about what your students are doing. So I want to spend the last little bit of time we have together talking about fluency. But fluency means different things to different people. So I picked one. I'll quote research from Baruti in 2006 means fluency with my basic facts, whether that's the addition basic facts or the multiplication basic facts, can be defined as the efficient, appropriate, and flexible application of calculation skills, and it is an essential aspect of mathematical proficiency. So with that lens in mind, I'm going to tell you that there's 3 phases of learning to become proficient in mathematics. All of us, we are learning in phases 1 and 3. 1 is where you were learning with your teacher, with the textbook, and phase 3 would be the practice, 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 practice. Phase 2 would be missing. All right, so we're going to find out what the 3 phases are, and I'm going to show you some examples with addition, show you some examples with multiplication. I'm going to ask you to indulge with me in a couple moments of playing each kind of thing so you can have the aha moments yourself. And so I'm going to start in with this 3rd grade standard. By the way, if you want to look yourself, it's on page 25 of your Iowa Core Standard book if you want to look up yourself. But by the end of grade 3, know from memory all products of 2 one-digit numbers. Note that the phrase know from memory is used and not memorized. That's a whole different piece of wax here. So here's an example. With repeated experiences working with number, students can come to just know that 2 times 6 equals 12 without ever having had to memorize it. At this point, we can say they've mastered their multiplication facts, that they've become so fluent at their strategies that they can just do it automatically without hesitation. So let's look at these 3 phases. I'll give a multiplication example here in just a minute. The bold are my phases: modeling or counting, and in early grades it would be counting all or counting on. I want to get them to move to count on. Deriving answers using reasoning strategies based on facts I do know, and the mastery or the efficient reproduction. So, in phase 1, modeling and or counting all or counting on to help find the answer. For example, using their fingers to help keep track of numbers if I'm asking them to add 5 plus 7. That's phase 1. Phase 2 would be deriving answers using reasoning strategies based on known facts. Still going to stick with that 5 by 7, but maybe the student knows their doubles. 5 plus 5 is 10, and then I know that it's 2 more. So practicing in this phase. And finally, getting so efficient after having spent time in phase 2, where they just know 5 plus 7 is 12, or just know it, because they've had plenty of exposure. In multiplication, those same 3 phases exist. But this time I'm going to focus on multiplying 6 by 4. So in phase 1, I'm either modeling or counting to find the answer of 6 times 4. Maybe I'm drawing 6 groups of 4 dots, and I can count them 1, I can count by 2s, I can count by 4s, whatever I'm good at counting, skip counting by. But in phase 2, I'm going to be using strategies I know, and maybe I know my facts of 5. And I could use a fact of 5, and then it's 1 more group of 4 to go on there. I know that 5 times 4 is 20, 6 times 4 is 1 more group of 4. I can figure that out. Mastery is, yeah, I just know it. Okay? I'm going to tell you that all of us did not have much exposure to phase 2 in our learning. It was not part of what was considered necessary. It is necessary. It's that conceptual piece, that picture that kids have to attach meaning to before they can know from memory. And we're not really providing those opportunities to our students nearly enough. So, research says, this is from the National Research Council, students must deliberately progress through the 3 phases with explicit development of reasoning strategies, which helps students master the facts and gives them a way to regenerate a fact if they've forgotten it. Students make more rapid gains in fact mastery when emphasis is placed on that strategic thinking. Now, we know textbooks do pretty good at modeling it to begin with and practice, practice, practice. But we have to be intentional about it. Now, you picked up some worksheets or some articles from me today. The one with the puzzle pieces at the top, there's somewhere in there a table of 1. And if you're looking for a logical sequence to teach multiplication, there is a suggestion to it and research behind it. So I just have that for you. And in both of these articles, the phases are listed with quite a little explanation. So I gave you both the addition article and the multiplication article, and I give them both to you because the addition article has several games that will develop them, and it will also have things, in my mind, I think you can adapt easily to the higher grades. So I'm going to ask us to whirlwind play some ideas. Is that all right? I wondered if I should skip this, but then I thought, no, you won't have the aha moment unless you do it. So I'm going to come around and I'm going to ask you to take 2 regular dot dice. While I'm coming around, can you see the board to read the directions? Is it big enough for you? Great. Great, great. 2 per person. Okay, so here you go. And we'd like you to do dot dice. I have some that are numbers, and if I give those to you, we want to trade them in. Oh, they've been in my cart. It's like, oh, darn. Yeah, you go over to me. Take some here. Thank you. Okay, you ready? Reading to you. Directions. Players take turns, each time rolling 2 regular dot dice. After the first player After the first player rolls his 2 dice, he determines which one has the greater number and keeps that one. Roll the other dice a second time. He then counts on from the first die to get the sum of the 2 dice and records the sum. When the first person's doing it, the second person's watching, verifying, then you repeat it. So, find a person, roll away. Roll your 2 dice.
Over here.
Keep the greater number. Roll the other dice again. Okay. And so you go on. 2, 3. Play till both of you have had a turn.
I'll get a better today.
All right, freeze. Now, tell me how I could adapt that game for multiplication. Yeah, same thing. Just don't add, you multiply. All right, now, what if I have kiddos who can't go up to 6? All right, can you picture from the craft store the foam that would be used to put into pillows? It's about yay thick. Okay, I have used my electric knife, cut my cubes out, taken my Sharpie, made my own dice. I could do that for any combinations of number. You just have to know the rule of the dice. Okay, would you pick up a dice right now and have it so the 2 is facing up? Anybody know what should be on the bottom? What's the rule of the dice? Add to 7, right? So when you're making your dice, you have to make sure you're keeping the same rule. Okay? So if you need to adjust for a student who is underneath your learning or above your learning, make your own. Just be aware of the die. If they all add to 7, if I've got a 4 on top, what's on bottom? 3. Got it? Okay, set the dice aside. I'll pick them up in just a minute. I know, that was fun, wasn't it? Okay. We are not going to fish. We're going to read this game. 10s go fish. It's a 2 to 4 player game. It's played like Go Fish, but instead of looking for matching cards, children look for combinations of 10. For example, if I've got a 4 in my hand, I'm going to ask somebody else, do you have 6? If they have a 6, that makes a 10. I get those cards. I record it on my things. I get to keep those cards, right? If you don't have it, you go fish. Easy breezy? Okay, now, we're going to have fun with this next one, and we are going to play it. This is Salute. Salute is played by 3 people. Can I have you hand out a deck of cards, 1 for every 3 people? Yeah, so put yourself in 3s, please. Now, you're not going to need to write down the directions from Salute because it's in the articles you've just gotten. All right, let's figure out how to play it. 3-player game. 2 are players and 1's a leader.
Can you do it before?
You can do it in a group of 4. It'll just be.
I could use you over there, Rhoda.
Okay. Do it.
Sorry, Rhoda.
Okay. You're the roving player. All right. Here's our directions. It's a 3-player game. To begin with, I have a leader and 2 players, and you'll rotate. So you'll all be a leader. You'll all be a player. Okay. So it just rotates. The objective of the game is to be the first of the players. I don't know why I cannot be typing correctly. The first of the players to say what number is on your forehead. Therefore, winning the pair of cards. So you need a deck of cards number 0 to 9. Okay, you've got a version of cards that's got some spares and it's got 10s. Just set them aside. Okay? If you come up to a blank or you've got a 10, just set it aside. So the leader's going to shuffle all the cards and put them face down in a stack. The leader's going to deal out 1 card to my 2 players. The player can't see their card. The leader says the magic word salute, and the players put their card face out on their forehead. So I can't see what I have, but I can see what my other player has. Got it? The leader, of course, can see both. So far, so good? All right. Now, the leader says the sum of the 2 cards. out loud. Both players determine what they say they think the number on their forehead is. So if you've got a 4 on your forehead and you have a 5 on your forehead, I say 9. She's got a 4, but she doesn't know it. She looks at a 5 and she's going to think, 9. 5 plus what makes 9? Aha! This is a hoot to play. Okay, it's a hoot. You will enjoy it as your learners. You will enjoy it going around. Now, the first player to correctly say the number wins the round and places his card there. But folks, you need to include everybody. You need to have the person say 5 plus 4 is 9. 4 plus 5 is 9. You need to have that repeated. That property of commutativity. This one first, doesn't matter. Sneaky property work, okay? Then you rotate so a new one's there. You ready to go? You shuffle? Okay, shuffle your cards. Okay, hand one to each player, face down. Face down. Okay, when you're ready, say the magic word. Go. Add them up, you tell them out loud.
4?
No, not
1.
Okay, awesome. So now you'd say 3, 2. Okay, and whoever's gonna first get the cards, okay? Try, let's do another one. Very good. Okay? I don't know why I feel like I'm just gonna pick a random one from in here.
They say is 9 equals 9.
New leader, let's go.
11.
And freeze. All right. Adapt this to multiplication. And you're having fun. Yeah, this is what it's like getting your kids back on. Adapt it for multiplication. Could you?
Sure.
Same thing, right?
But you could leave your 10. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Could you make your 8?
Depending on your grade level.
Depending on your grade level. If you want to do anything else, you most certainly can. You can make your own on index cards, for goodness sakes. You can make it go to 12.
The only thing with multiplication is,
Then they learn.
but you probably can't use it like a 0 because everything's in a 0.
Well, that's a fact I need to know.
Yes. What my card is, I don't know. I usually a 0. I write a 0. I can have like
Then the person who's got the 0,
5 or 6 or 7.
the person who's got the 0 has the advantage. Yeah. All right, set those cards aside, please. Put them back in the box to be best. All right, now, can I keep you 3 more minutes? Is that okay or not? And if you have to leave, you're not going to offend me, okay? We're next going to do multiplication array cards, and this could be a 2, 3, or 4 player game. So, can I ask you to give people? I'm going to keep the white one because those are not cardstock. A pair of trio, whatever. Oh, looks like I dropped one. I have one more. I've got one more set here. If you need.
Yeah, they're bringing up a good point in that game. What happens if somebody gets the wrong, if the leader says the wrong sum?
Then I'm going to have to say, it doesn't work, then we're going to have to call out and say what it is. And that will happen.
Well, maybe you can have somebody who figures out the mistake first get a point or something.
Certainly.
So, I figured out that you did it
Yes.
wrong, so.
Yes.
Because that should be.
These are phase 2 fluency practices, okay? Opportunities to see pictures, to see items, to work with them. Now, these multiplication array cards. This is a brand new item offered through Creative Services. They're called multiplication array cards. If you want to get these from Heartland, you call Creative Services and you ask to get these printed off, okay? It's 6 pieces of cardstock. It's not an expensive item. All right, so what you're going to do, this is what, if you're going to order from Heartland through the Creative Services, that's what you're going to ask for. Okay, now, if I was going to use them over and over with my students, I'd ask to have them laminated. It takes a little bit of time to cut these little guys apart, but the payback is good. Right? So if my students come to me and they're in 5th grade and they do not know from memory their basic facts, I have an issue. Right? I have an issue. So that means we need to provide them with more phase 2 practice. So here's an idea. So in game, I have 2 games to do this. We'll just play game 1. Spread out all of the cards. Some should show the multiplication problem, and some should show the product. In other words, some things square up, some things square down, okay? Because they're all on graph paper. They're all multiplication arrays, okay? So you and your group of people are going to choose a card by putting your finger on it. And all you have to do is tell me what's on the back side of the card. If it's showing factors, I have to give the product. If it's showing product, I have to give the factors. Now, if it's 10, I want to give 2 times 5, 5 times 2.
Oh.
Not just 1, okay? Factors, I want to give both sets of them. If it's 72, I want to give 8 times 9, 9 times 8. All right, turn the card over to check the answer. If you're right, you get to keep the card. If you're wrong, it goes back in the deck.
It's just basic facts. It's
Yes.
not like 2 times 18.
Nope.
I mean,
Nope, this is 10.
2 times 36 or.
Nope.
Okay.
All right, so spread them out. Pick a card, any card. Start in. Play.
Okay, now what is that? What is this?
No. You get to cut. They will come to you on a piece of paper. And it does take a little time. But these guys
So because if I
And in keeping with my 3-minute process, here's game 2. I'm not going to ask us to play this. This is another version with these same multiplication array cards. You deal all the cards out so that each player has the same number of cards. If you have cards left over, just put them in a discard pile. We don't care. Just even number for everybody. Each player stacks his cards with the total side down in front of them, and it's like war. At the same time, each player places his or her top card in the center of the table with the multiplication problem showing. Together, the players decide which array has the larger total. The player who has the larger total keeps the card. Just another way to have practice with them.
they're different sizes.
Yes. Now, to you and me, that's so logical. If you didn't hear her question, it's like, but the cards are different sizes. Well, to you and I, that's really logical. But some of our students aren't there yet. They don't know that that 1 by 1 square is smaller than the 10 by 10 square. We need to show them. All right, now, I'm not going to ask you to go there, but there is this really wonderful game. Are you aware of Bunny Time? Okay, I'll send this to you. Bunny Time is one of those digital pieces that's conceptual learning, no time constraints, got it wrong, gives you a hint, helps you to learn it. Okay, so if you need to work on multiplication facts, and folks, it starts pretty simplistic and goes through various levels. And so I'll send this presentation off to you so you can look it up. You don't have to write anything down tonight unless you so desire. This URL is the same as this one. It looked like an awful lot, but in my thinking, I want to know, where did it come from? Okay, it came from a .org. And this is the fast way to get to it. Same exact URL. Takes you the same place, just a short note. Thank you very much for your time.
Don't forget to get all Diane's stuff back, please. And then, rather than everybody individually contacting Creative Services, if you want a classroom set of the arrays, why don't you let me know? And that way we'll just put in one order, because we can use our sign-in money for that. So,
Can we run copies of them? Can we send them just like a sheet form?
I think that's what she said
they will run them off, and I just go ahead and get them laminated too.
Yeah.
And then when they come back, you'd want to cut them out. Don't let a kid cut them out.
I don't really like
You what?
I personally would not want my set laminated.
Oh, okay. I just assumed it would.
They would like to hear.
Well, that's supposed to come back.
Okay. I just look at that lamination. I can mix. Okay, this is how they milk their cardstock, and you know they're hot off the press.